Welcome, folks. Good evening. Welcome to Mind Training in Homa Therapy as we go over Agnihotra and the principles and practices that support it. As we go study Agnihotra and its gift to us as a purification of the atmosphere using the agency of fire, so that we can all live healthier, happier lives, reclaim our planet from all the pollution that's been caused by industrialization and our lack of focus on our well-being as a priority. So this evening, at this location, Agnihotra goes at 7, 17, and 17 seconds. And as I said before, you can get Agnihotra timings from from agnihotra.org is the main website here in the United States, agnihotra.org. And you can get Agnihotra supplies there, or you can contact me here at the Baltimore Homa community. And our mission is to promote the practice of Agnihotra and Homas in the community. So if you're interested in trying it out for yourself, being your own researcher, being your own scientist, as Sri Vasant used to say, just contact us and we will help you get started. Again, it's no religious affiliation, any religion, any spiritual path, or even none. You know, it's interesting, sometimes people that I've met that I've considered most spiritual at times were people who consider themselves atheists. But they had high values, and that, to me, helped them to be very spiritually focused. So it's not always, how you conceptualize it, but it's how you behave. So in that line, we're going to talk some this evening about one of the 7 rules of thumb of Homa Therapy. We're going to talk about discrimination. But we're going to start off doing Agnihotra as usual. And we're going to burn our cow dung with cow ghee and offer rice with a little bit of ghee and a whole grain rice, not polished or bleached rice, because anything you add to the process is going to compromise it. You want to use the purest ingredients and nothing else. So it is 5:17. So we have a couple minutes before we get started. So as you probably noticed, I enjoy playing the flute. One of the things that seems clear to me is that all of us, every one of us has a creative vehicle through which we can express ourselves, through which we learn about life, through which we learn about ourselves. A creative vehicle, whether that's something visual or something audio or something in movement or some type of writing, whatever. So many vehicles, gardening, but we all have something natural when we are in our most aligned state that helps us to experience the world through our creativity. And that helps take us to, again, to higher states of consciousness, to help us to cool out, to relax, to be more of ourselves. We live in a time when there is so much turmoil. There's a lot of stress-producing energies about. And stress is not so much about what happens, it's about how we respond to what happens. How we respond to what happens. And we do better when we respond consciously and deliberately to what happens, rather than on automatic. You know, when we're on automatic, we're in the what's called the amygdala, the primitive brain, which is about, you know, fight, flight, or freeze. Automatic. It was the part of the brain that developed when we were in more primitive states, you know, like that. But that's automatic, you know, like somebody says something about me, I growl at them. That's automatic. Or step on my shoes and I start swinging, or whatever. I just have these automatic responses that I learned real early to defend myself. And many of them come from the things that I've watched and things I've heard and seen. But to really be responsive and deliberate, we have to get up to the prefrontal cortex. Instead of reacting, we respond. We respond. And to respond, we usually have to pause for a minute and we have to ask ourselves some questions. You know, what's the consequences of my actions? Is there another way to do it? Did he really mean to hurt my feelings? Whatever. So before I react, I process and then make a deliberate attempt to say, oh no, I've decided to ignore this, or this means this, or doesn't mean that to me. I've processed it and I've come up with how I'm going to deal with it, rather than being on automatic. Now that's not to say that what I process and respond is going to be perfect all the time, but it's going to be deliberate. And the more deliberate and intentional we are, the more we become in charge of ourselves. And, you know, over time, those things may shift. We may learn better how to respond to something. I mean, most of us can realize how we respond at the current age we are now. Hopefully it's different than what we did when we were children, or, you know, adolescence or whatever. So much of life is about learning to manage our impulses and to make proper decisions about how to respond that is consistent with one's well-being and not just reactive. As a therapist, for so many times I've spoken to a lot of people. You know, we've all done something in reaction and then felt sorry about it later. You know, ended up in a conflict or in some situation that we could have handled differently, that we could have handled in a healthier way if we had managed our emotions, moved from reacting to responding in a more deliberate way. So, let me have 6 minutes. Okay. So this process, again, helps to slow the mind down. And when the mind is slowed down, when it settles down, then it goes deeper, thinks more clearly, can be more in a responsive mode, like that. We do it daily at sunrise and sunset. We do it with cow dung, cow's ghee, whole grain rice, and we ignite it with a mantra, a Sanskrit mantra. Now, mantras are good to do no matter what language you do them in. The Sanskrit is a special language that was heard by seers, and it changes the energy when it combines with the substances and the biorhythm of the circadian rhythm of sunrise and sunset. It just creates a whole another set of possibilities. I believe yesterday we talked some about no fault finding. Basically about being positive, the benefits of being deliberate and intentional about seeing the glass half full rather than half empty. Rather than seeing something as 60% of problematic, look at the 40% that is an asset, looking for strengths rather than pathology, looking for possibilities rather than limits. Because what you look for, you tend to find, and what you focus on, you give energy to, and you help to create more of it. So if you're looking at problems all the time, you're going to probably create more problems. And if you're looking for solutions all the time, if you're looking at strengths and possibilities, you're going to create more of those. Okay. So we're going to do the fire, and we're going to take about 5 minutes to meditate, pray, do deep breathing, whatever works to you to settle your spirit, whatever works for you to settle your mind, and help you go deeper to connect with your divinity that is all about source, and reinforce those affirmations, values, prayers, express gratitude so that we can grow into the best versions of ourselves. Put a little ghee on the rice. About 2 minutes. For those of us who've been practicing and studying this for a while, we have lots of Sanskrit mantras that we do, besides the actual Agnihotra mantra. And, you know, if you're interested to, be available to learn. About 1.5 minutes. And take a deep breath. As you breathe out, breathe from your gut, up through your ribs and your chest, your whole diaphragm, and then release. Breathing is cleansing. Okay, just under 1 minute. 30 seconds. Ten seconds. Agnaye Svaha, Agnaye Dam Namama, Prajapataye Svaha, Prajapataye Idam Namama. sometimes I think that the hardest part for me doing Agnihotra, meditating sometimes, is coming out of meditation. It can be such a soothing place, such a nurturing, elevating place. They're coming back to the external version of life. It's not always as inviting. So yesterday we talked about no fault finding, looking at the positives. Not that we're ignoring that there are other things happening, but we say if we want to connect with, understand, work with people, we have to understand that everybody has good intentions and is trying to meet legitimate needs, even if they're doing it in ways that are delusional or unhealthy. So a place that we can always connect with people is around their intentions, because we're all trying to do basically the same things. We're trying to meet our basic needs, be happy, have good esteem, be safe, and actualize our potential. And in every situation, no matter how threatening, negative, harmful, there's always a positive side. There's always a positive side, if no more than the lesson or the blessing that comes out of awareness of the thing. Because when we get clear, when our awareness increases, we make better decisions. We make better decisions. We can be more consciously aware, deliberate, and intentional about how we perform. So that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit. I'm going to talk about discrimination. Discrimination is about decision making. It's discerning what's right from wrong, healthy from unhealthy, needed from desired. It's discerning what is valuable and necessary from what is frivolous and distracting. It's making those decisions. And as I said yesterday, scientists say that we make 35,000 decisions a day per person. 35,000 decisions. What we're going to eat, which way we're going to drive, going this way, when we're going to go to bed, what we're going to watch on TV. All these decisions we make. And they say 90 to 95% of the decisions are unconscious decisions. And we said earlier that our unconscious mind in today's world can be 95% of our mind. So in other words, it's the programming that's gone in that we will automatically make these decisions about, as opposed to being deliberate, intentional, and aware. So, discrimination. How do we make healthy decisions? Healthy decisions. Well, we do have our brains, which most of us consider the seat of our minds, but the mind is actually larger than that. But it's very easy to get stuck in the left part of the brain, we call logic. That's about categorizing things. It's about counting and measuring, labeling things like that. We refer to that as logic. And logic has its place. But left to its own devices by itself, it can be a setup. For the brain to really function properly, we want to integrate the right part of the brain too. The right part of the brain is the part that integrates experience and sees how one experience relates to another, how everything is interrelated, affects one another, so we can see things more holistically. That's just in the brain. So let's say that's the mind, and that's, essential for decision making. But if we're only making decisions based on what we perceive mentally, we're going to be shortchanging ourselves, because that's not all of our faculties. Another essential component in the decision-making process is our hearts. Our hearts. Our hearts are the part of us that experience, process, and express emotions. And as Sri Prasad used to say, emotions are messengers. When we receive the message that comes from our emotions, they inform us and help us to make better decisions. In so many cultures and subcultures, so many of us are programmed not to deal with emotions. What happens if you don't deal with emotions? If you don't deal with emotions, emotions are going to deal with you. And you wake up in a conflict or with handcuffs or in a fight or, just overwhelmed, like that. When we make decisions that include our heart, we let our emotions in. Emotions. And when I say emotions, just to categorize a few of them, I forgot this brother's name, but one of the researchers categorizes emotions in like 5 levels. And the top level is like, we call it like an iceberg, because what is above the level of that these emotions on seems like it's a lot and it's intense, because at the top of this iceberg is anger, irritation, frustration, those kind of things that can be very large and very dominating. Most of us know how to get anger, and people even talk about healthy anger or whatever, but anger can rule our lives, and again, it can be very toxic. But if we go deeper, under anger, there's another level that's always there, and that's hurt, pain, disappointment, all of those things, feelings of inadequacy, unworthiness, all of those different kinds of hurt and pain exist under anger. So if we go deeper than the anger, we get to the hurt. Say, what hurt me that I'm reacting to things this way? And if we go deeper than the hurt, what do we get to? We get to fear. Oh, the brother's name whose chart I'm using is Daniel Goleman. Yeah. So under hurt is fear. Fear might manifest as insecurity, anxiety, but fear. And think about it. One of the things about when you're hurt, there's always that anxiety about, can I get over it? Is it going to overwhelm me? Is it going to continue to happen? So under that is fear. And then at another level, the level is guilt and shame. Guilt is I did something bad. Shame is I'm bad because of what I did. So that's level. Anger, hurt, fear, guilt and shame. And it's good news if you go deep enough. You can only feel guilt and shame if you care. So the deepest level, you can only experience any of those emotions if at a deeper level you care. And that deepest level is love. Love as compassion, as empathy, as forgiveness, as nurturance, love. But again, it's very easy in our today's society to live on the surface and not get deeper into that nurturing part of your emotional experience, where the love exists, the compassion, where the caring about yourself and other people exists. But that's the heart. Now, many of us have experienced traumas and hurts and other kinds of pains that have been with us for some time, and we put up different kinds of defenses, whether they're, I don't hear certain things, or I'm angry all the time, or I'm joking, all kinds of defenses. But when we can allow ourselves to experience our feelings and say, oh, I'm upset, then I say, what is that about? Then I can start to process that and see what messages it has. And it usually has a message about shifting the way I'm doing something. Either the way I'm processing or not processing, thinking or behaving. In some ways, it's giving me some kind of message. So when the mind is working with the heart, I tend to have a larger view of possibilities, a larger view of possibilities. But there's one more that is essential for really good decision making. It's intuition, in the gut, the knowing beyond knowing how you're knowing. When we really settle, the higher we get in consciousness, the more we get, we exist in our deeper brain waves. The more we learn how to process emotions, the more in touch we become with our intuition. All of us have intuition. Everybody has experienced this thing. Something told me not to go down there. I had that idea, I didn't follow through. Something told me that, I didn't need to do that. When we learn to listen to that still small voice within, we do better. And if we're listening to all three of those together, we're listening to the mind, we're listening to our hearts, and we're getting the feedback from our emotions, and we're listening to our guts, intuition, we tend to make better decisions. Because when we get down to the gut, it's beyond the five senses, beyond what we see, beyond what we experience. Many people say we're getting guidance from other densities or other spaces other than this physical 3D world. Whether it's ancestors or deities or this universal consciousness, we're getting some kind of direction because we're part of all of that. We are part of the universe. And as such, when we're in touch with ourselves, when we're still, when we're grounded, we are more in touch with our intuition, our subtle ways of knowing. That's what I was kind of referring to when I was talking about the creative part. To me, the creative part is tapping into that intuition when it takes you places that you haven't been before, but you do it with colors, or you do it with music or with dance or whatever. You know when you dance, when you get to the part where you say, dance like nobody's watching, first you're doing steps and then you're just flowing. And you start to go into other spaces where you're being led more intuitively. So what I'm saying is, we do better when we use our whole capacity. We use our whole capacity for making decisions. And when we keep notes. So when I say notes, they may or may not be written, maybe journaling or maybe something structured. But when I get a message and I say, oh, this is what I'm hearing, to follow through with that and to see where it takes me. To see where it takes me. Not to just let it go, but to stay in touch with it, to see what comes out of it. Because, the truth is, we do better when we periodically reassess our ways of knowing and our ways of being. When we reassess, if I'm stuck in I'm right and this is what it is, and blah, blah, that can be a little dangerous. But if I can look at myself every now and then and say, well, this is what my belief systems have been, and this is what I have been doing with them, and this is what some of the results, maybe there's some other ways of doing that. Then I am open. I'm open to I'm open in my heart, my mind, my intuition. I'm open to being guided by life. Guided by life. Life is speaking to all of us all the time. And when we can occasionally reassess, because we're going to have to reassess. We either do it voluntarily, intentionally, rhythmically, or we get the blessing of crisis to do it. Crisis will come on this planet. It's part of the teaching mechanism. Just like none of us came here to stay in this 3D world, we can bet that things are going to happen that are going to challenge our understanding, our behavior, our perception, our beliefs from time to time. When we can, in an open way, look at those things, absorb them, sit with them, and sometimes ask for guidance and clarity, and be open to the messages that come, we do a lot better. As opposed to locking down and I know. I remember coming up as a young kid in the neighborhood, and a lot of times the guys who were the most aggressive, loud, and assertive about what they knew and their power and whatever, were the ones that were the most fragile. Those were defense mechanisms. And they were some of the ones that had some of the most difficult times as adults, the ones that reached adulthood. But ones who were more quiet, more open, more willing to acknowledge uncertainty and not knowing and trying new things from time to time, those were the ones that lasted longer and seemed to have had more fulfilling lives. Mm. So we all have choices, not about what happens to us, but about how we deal with it. And the more we use our power of discrimination systemically, consistently, and take notes on it, the more powerful it gets. It can get so powerful again that you know things before they happen. You know, when we're really aligned, when we're really in harmony with those ways of knowing and using all of them, we can get so much connected to them that sometimes we know things before they happen. The point is, whatever we work on, we become better at. Whatever we give time and attention to, we get better at. And when we make a decision about what we're going to work on, it gets better. It gets better, as opposed to being just led by our programming of our unconscious that may have happened at younger stages of our existence, that may have happened by compassionate sources or sources that really didn't have our welfare in mind. So at each stage of development, one of our challenges is to reassess, see what's working for us so we can go deeper, be more of ourselves, more connected to the divine, and to systematically, to compassionately increase our capacity by deciding how we're going to live, what disciplines I'm going to incorporate, whether that's on how I spend my money or what I eat or what I talk about or how I study spirituality, how I do my hygiene, but make deliberate decisions and start with small steps to experiment with, to see what works for me, and follow through with that, and facilitate one's growth. And then have life give us feedback on our efforts to be the best version of ourselves as we elevate our consciousness, become more deliberate, more consistent, and more of ourselves. So that's I think that's most of it for right now. Just about including, with the 7 rules of thumb, we want to include no fault finding, being positive, looking for strengths, assets, abilities, capacities. And we want to focus on discrimination, improving our ability to discern what's real, what's healthy, what's right for me, to make those decisions in a holistic way, take notes so I can follow through and be consistent with those things that work for me, and reassess them periodically. Okay, so, this process that we've been going over for the last 3 days it's been about let's say mind training and Homa Therapy. And I used to have a podcast when we used to talk about these things, but now we're going to use a YouTube channel, and you'll be able to tune in that, and we're going to have regular updates and and hopefully have some of you come in and share also your questions and comments on those discussions. There's also even a book that is being published that summarizes some of the podcasts. It's called Mind Training, Journey to Self-Actualization. It will be out shortly. I will let you know when it's out. But again, if you follow your intuition, there's many, many sources out there that are trying to support, assist, elevate, guide, and protect us. It's our job to be open to them with an open mind, an open heart, open intuition, and to follow through on what we get. So peace and blessings. And let's try this one. Peace and blessings. Enjoy your evening. Get some good rest. And we'll see you tomorrow at 7 in the evening. Peace.